Any chance they get. The fight clock is brought to you by Modelo.
The first UFC event was held in 1993, and since then it was produced some of the most spectacular UFC knockouts the sports of mixed martial arts has ever seen. Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today we'll be taking a look at the best UFC knockouts in the history of UFC. Stay tuned and watch this video right till the end as we take a look at the best UFC knockouts ever. Before we start though, we would like you to subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to turn on the bell for the latest notifications and updates. With that said, let's jump straight into today's video. Zuffa, the parent company, took over the UFC in 2001, installing a young Dana White as its president. With over 500 fights hosted since its conception, these are 10 of the most jaw-dropping, heart-stopping, mind-blowing finishes in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Mauricio Shogun Rua versus Lyoto Machida. First up, we have these two rivals who are pitted against each other twice, with defending champion Lyoto Machida coming off a controversial unanimous decision win over Shogun Rua at UFC 104. The UFC booked the rematch between the two. The fight would go down at UFC 113 in 2010. Machida was undefeated in his career up to this point. Having won the titles against Rashad Evans, the rematch against Shogun was completely different from the first contest, with the champion being more aggressive. This led to Rua landing a big right hand that hurt and dropped Machida. He quickly gained the mount position and cranked up the pressure to earn a KO. As a result, he became the first person to defeat the Dragon and claim the UFC middleweight championship. This was an amazing game and perhaps one of the best in the UFC history. Dan Henderson versus Michael Bisping. Dan Henderson's right hand is no less than a sledgehammer, and former UFC middleweight champion Michael Bisping got the living daylights knocked out of him when the pair met inside the octagon at UFC 100. In one of the most savage KOs in UFC history, Henderson feigned with a jab and then connected right on the button with a straight right to send the Brit's head bouncing off the mat. However, Henderson wasn't done just yet, bouncing on the ground to hit Bisping with a flying forearm to the jaw, making it one of the most spine-chilling knockouts ever. Henderson later told Joe Rogan during the post-fight interview that he followed up the initial KO with a flying forearm as Bisping went to the ground to shut him up. Francis Ngannou versus Alistair Overeem. This fight is remembered as one with the uppercut from hell. Francis the Predator Ngannou was a relatively lesser-known commodity until his now famous knockout of Alistair Overeem took place. The devastating first-round KO of the Demolition Man put Ngannou on the map. On the back of his statement performance, he earned the #1 contender spot for Stipe Miocic's heavyweight title. Ngannou landed a huge uppercut, snapping Overeem's head back as he fell to the canvas, stiff as a board. The Cameroonian fighter followed it up with a hammer fist for good measure before the referee got across and stopped the bout. A thrilling match to watch. Anderson Silva versus Vitor Belfort. The Battle of Brazil at UFC 126 showcased two of Brazil's greatest talents, Anderson Silva and Vitor Belfort. The duo was all set to thrill fans in a fight for the Spider's middleweight title. UFC President Dana White confirmed that the former light heavyweight champion would go down to challenge Silva despite his reluctance to fight a countryman. However, he relented, and the Phenom insisted on the clash. Ahead of the fight, no one could have imagined the manner in which Silva retained his belt. The Spider landed a devastating front kick and swiftly moved in for a ground and pound to close out UFC 126. As a result, he established himself as one of the greatest talents to come out of Brazil. Chris Weidman versus Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva was on a 16-fight win streak in the UFC as he went in to fight against a relatively unknown Chris Weidman. The All-American was undefeated. However, he was a massive underdog in the fight. Rightly so, as Anderson Silva had risen to be one of the greatest talents the UFC had ever seen with his fan-friendly fight style. On this fateful night, the Spider lets his arrogance get the better of his judgment. He dropped his hands and offered the challenger a free swing at his face. This encouraged Weidman to swing while Silva attempted to dodge it with his high-level head movement. The UFC octagon, however, is no place for games as Silva learned the hard way as he crumpled to the canvas. The Spider has not been the same after that defeat, and fans wonder what might have been having him not showboated. Edson Barboza versus Terry Edom. One of the most lethal strikers in MMA, Edson Barboza's KO of Terry Edom at UFC 142 was so devastating. Many claim that the former took his opponent's soul along with the win on the night. Barboza connected with a perfectly timed spinning wheel kick to the temple, and the next thing you knew, Edam's body lay flattened on the canvas, stiff as wood. Had the fight not been stopped there itself, Edam would have suffered a career-ending injury. Jorge Masvidal vs. Ben Askren. Jorge Masvidal's resurrection was finally complete when the former top contender for the UFC welterweight title threw down against former ONE FC, now known as ONE Championship, champion Ben Askren in the main event of UFC 239. All it took, Street Jesus, was 5 seconds to knock the former Olympian out cold in the center of the octagon. Masvidal ran straight towards a bent-over Askren, with the latter possibly looking to shoot for a single-leg takedown, and launched a thunderous flying knee into Ben Askren's face, leaving Funky asleep inside the cage. The fight didn't end there, though. Gamebred landed a couple more super necessary strikes on Askren as he went crashing down on the canvas. Chan Sung Jung vs. Yair Rodriguez. UFC Fight Night Korean Zombie vs. Rodriguez. Chan Sung Jung and Yair Rodriguez indulged in an all-out war in the main event of UFC Fight Night Korean Zombie vs. Rodriguez back in November 2018. As the back-and-forth encounter entered the 5th round, Rodriguez was losing on the scorecards and crawling towards his second consecutive defeat inside the cage. However, in the final moments of the ultimate round, something miraculous occurred as Rodriguez landed a highlight reel elbow strike that knocked Jung out cold the moment it connected. Jung fell on the mat, out cold, sending the entire world into a frenzy. Amanda Nunes vs. Chris Cyborg. The title for greatest women's fighter was up for grabs when UFC's women bantamweight champion Amanda Nunes went up to face featherweight champion Chris Cyborg at UFC 232. Nunes was on a tear in the UFC, and Cyborg had long held the reputation of being unbeatable. Hence, fans expected a cracker as the women would battle for Cyborg's UFC featherweight title. The pre-fight expectations fizzled out as the fight did not last long. The Lioness caught her opponent in the opening minute to assert her superiority over a formidable foe and enhance her reputation as the women's MMA's first champ. Conor McGregor vs. Jose Aldo. Conor McGregor's KO of former UFC featherweight champion Jose Aldo is the stuff that dreams are made of. In his first ever title fight inside the octagon, the Irishman took just 13 seconds to knock out his Brazilian counterpart, who hadn't lost a single fight inside the cage in a decade until that day at UFC 194, which took place on 13 December 2015 at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. As the fight started, McGregor looked very relaxed while Aldo looked like he was starting to feel the heat of the fans screaming, calling for his head at the MGM Grand. As the Irishman had rightly anticipated at a press conference in the lead up to the fight, Aldo overstretched with the right as McGregor counterpunched with razor-sharp precision, his knuckles crunching on Aldo's temples as the former champ went down, marking the beginning of the McGregor era in the UFC. And with that, we wrap up our video. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Do let us know if we missed any historic UFC fights down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.